The American Civil War was the first true industrial conflict. It was a war where the tactics of Napoleon collided with the technology of the Industrial Revolution. While cannons thundered and muskets lined the fields, the personal narrative of the war was written in the short-range crack of the revolver. Before this conflict, a handgun was a single-shot curiosity or a heavy horse pistol. By 1865, it was a repeating machine of death. To understand the modern firearm, we must exhume the iron bones of the 1860s. We begin with the titan of the era, Samuel Colt. The Colt Model 1860 Army was the premier sidearm of the Union. Over 200,000 were forged. Chambered in .44 caliber, it replaced the heavy dragoon pistols of the past. It utilized a streamlined design with a rebated cylinder, allowing for a larger caliber on a lighter frame. It was sleek, balanced, and deadly effective. But for many, the preferred weapon was the Model 1851 Navy, a .36 caliber masterpiece. It was lighter, had less recoil, and was carried by legends on both sides, including Robert E. Lee. These were cap-and-ball weapons. You poured powder, rammed a lead ball, and capped the nipple. A slow process, but for 6 seconds, you were the god of war. If Colt was the artist, Remington was the engineer. The Remington Model 1858 New Model Army offered a critical advantage, a solid top strap. While the Colt was an open-top design, liable to weaken over time, the Remington was a solid loop of steel. It was virtually indestructible. More importantly, a cavalryman could drop the cylinder pin, remove the empty cylinder, and swap in a preloaded one in seconds. In the heat of a cavalry charge, where reloading loose powder was a suicide mission, the Remington was a lifeline. South of the Mason-Dixon, where factories were scarce, necessity bred monsters.
The ring lever pivots
The
backward,
LeMat revolver
initiating
is perhaps the most
rotation.
exotic weapon of the
This
war.
action simultaneously
Designed by a French physician and carried by General J.E.B. Stuart, it was a 9-shot, .42 caliber revolver revolving around a central smoothbore barrel. With the flip of a lever on the hammer, the shooter could switch from pistol rounds to a 20-gauge shotgun blast. It was known as the Grape Shot revolver, a terrifying surprise for any Union soldier who got too close. The hunger for weapons brought European innovation to American soil. The Lefaucheux Model 1858 introduced the pinfire cartridge. Unlike the loose powder of the Colts, this used a self-contained metallic cartridge with a protruding pin. It was ugly, but it was weatherproof and fast to load. It foreshadowed the future of all ammunition. Meanwhile, domestic oddities like the savage 1861 Navy utilized a figure-8 trigger system, one ring to cock, one to fire. And the Starr revolver, the third most issued handgun, offered a complex double-action mechanism that was ahead of its time, though often too delicate for the mud of Virginia. We cannot ignore the quiet revolution of the Smith & Wesson Model No. 2. While the Army bought percussion revolvers, officers spent their own money on this .32 caliber rimfire weapon. It used copper cartridges, no powder flask, no percussion caps, just load and shoot. It was underpowered, but it worked when wet. Mark Twain carried one. It was the whisper of the modern era, signaling the end of the percussion age. Why do we study these rusted cylinders? Because the Civil War handgun represents the democratization of firepower. It shifted the power dynamic from the collective volley of the infantry line to the individual agency of the soldier. It created the mythos of the American gunfighter. Today, the mechanism of a modern revolver is a direct descendant of the Remington's solid frame and the Smith & Wesson's cartridge. When you look at a Glock or a Sig Sauer today, you are looking at the great-grandchildren of 1861. These weapons were not just tools of fratricide. They were the crucibles of modern engineering. They teach us that human ingenuity is often sharpest when the stakes are survival. In the cold steel of a Civil War revolver, we see the terrifying, beautiful persistence of the human drive to master the machine, even in the heart of darkness.